And hello, party people. Welcome back to another NRW video, another review for all our fans in Videoland and beyond. I am David Estacado, and I'm here with my buddy from Another Nutty, the one and only Rob, the movie guy. What's good, Rob?
It's all going well over here, man. Thank you very much for that intro there, and I'm doing very well. How are you doing today so far?
Hype for this next review, man.
Yeah, same here.
We're slowly catching up here for the rest of the crowd is. Though we did watch every episode as live when everybody else watched it. We're just getting these a little later than what we wanted to, so we do apologize. But I promise you guys, the next weekend we'll have everything on time for all of us. We can all talk at the same time and hype and gossip about the boys. So let's get into it, Rob. This is episode numero 5 of The Boys, or Los Nenes, as they would say in Espanol. So let's get into it, man. This episode, you can see more of Homelander losing his shit. Let's just say. That's the number one takeaway from this episode is Homelander is losing his shit. Lots of themes about perspective and the use of screens a lot in this episode. Different perspectives of how people way of thinking and what they appear, what they put out there. Really goes into this episode a lot.
Well, I think that you mentioned the most important thing, which is the big elephant in the room, is where you mentioned that Homelander loses his shit. There's a lot of things that you come to find out that the perspective that, because obviously Vought has now been revealed as this pharmaceutical company that creates Compound V to create superhero humans here. And then they're trying to carry that the heroes didn't know. Obviously they knew, but they didn't know. Most of them didn't know, I should say. But now they're trying to save face. Saving face, but along the way, there's a revelation that Homelander does save a village, but being so careless that he kills an innocent civilian along the way, and then just completely disregards that and walks away. And someone has captured it on video here and released it to the media. And now they've got to answer for that. And this is the part where you see that Homelander is so used to being able to go to the public and say some sort of speech that will help inspire them. Because we've seen that in the first season and a little bit in this season as well too. But something comes along the way where he's able to say something and then he's able to get himself out of that situation. This time it doesn't work. And that's where the confrontations of him being dealt with, where he has to deal with the public, who now looked at him as this superhero individual who's on his pedestal. Now he realizes, wait a minute, this guy's a piece of shit, and he's looking out for us here, and he doesn't, so it's like that was a very nice twisted turn of events here, that you get to see Homelander now having to deal with his insecurities of him being dependent on the public's adulation. Here he is now being confronted that they want nothing to do with him now, especially after it was revealed to them. So I thought that was a really good twist here for us to see how that's going to be handled moving forward. And this does go a little deep into that as well too. It really does. And we go into a lot of different deep trenches here with not just Homelander, but with everybody here. So
number 2 is kind of like you see kind of Butcher after last episode, kind of really down on himself, he's just done.
The Butcher way, you say, really down on himself, the Butcher way.
The Butcher way, drinking, getting into fights, getting his ass beat. At a bar, it was like a show at a bar. Pretty much just telling everybody, like, I'm heading off the grid. I'm done. I'll see you guys around. And the boys don't have none of that. They pretty much track him down to his Aunt Judy's house, where
let's talk about how they track him down, because this is a call that was made by Butcher to Huey, and he reveals certain things that Huey didn't catch on to, but Mother's Milk says, tell me everything that he says that he said on the call. And then with the information that he was able to relate to Mother's Milk, that's where they discovered that he plans on retiring and wants to go see his beloved dog. A very a wonderful character in the comic books, in Terror, and we finally get to see him in this episode here, which I thought was a really nice touch.
Which is great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm glad we get to see him.
And we get to see
it goes more crazy than that, but we'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
because there's so much stuff going on. But this is every freaking episode of The Boys. There's so much stuff to get into and get and so much points going on here and there that kind of all interact here. But being the whole showdown at his aunt's house is one of the major points here that I really enjoyed. But we'll get that in a second. The other thing going on is the movie that they're all playing, trying to get going off here, where it's like a tongue-in-cheek kind of slap in the face of trying to Justice League and Batman. And
well, it's mainly it's called Dawn of the Seven, so it's obviously a ripoff of Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice here. Let's talk about that one, because that was actually one of the for me, it was one of the best parts of the show, because the episode, I should say, where you get to see, like you mentioned before, what they're trying to portray to the public through this film, and the change of events that's going to occur in real life with the Seven here, with the exit of A-Train, who's obviously very much against that whole exclusion there, and then you're seeing what's being acted on this in front of the cameras, and then what goes on immediately after the cut, and we all know what's going on. But that's a pretty good thing to point out there.
Well, speaking of that, you brought up A-Train. Storm Shark kind of has a little bit of a short interaction with him. She kind of slowly shows off a little bit of who she really is. I think A-Train kind of picks up on that.
He definitely picks up
on that. But again,
she's
putting up this front of, I don't know what you're talking about. It used to be, great talking about the Deep and his commercial for the Church of the Collective, which is a kind of brief little humorous point there. Because he's doing that promotional commercial or something for the Church.
Yeah, they're obviously using him as the main mascot.
The face,
for the church. And so this is kind of like a weird thing, because the church, what's it called, Church of Collective, right? Uh-huh. They are, for me, it's an obvious take on the Church of Scientology, and who's the main face of the Church of Scientology? Tom Cruise. I mean, other than David Miscavige, who's the main guy, but he's always behind the scenes and is rarely ever in front of the public. But Tom Cruise is the main guy that they use. This is the epitome of what Scientology is. When you look at that guy, successful, polite to other people, whatever else. They're using that for the Deep, who is a former member of the Seven, who they're trying to push him back into the Seven. With their influence, of course, and there's obviously a powerful individual behind the scenes in that church, and he is basically being set up for marriage, just a lot like with the stories and rumors you've heard about Tom Cruise and his relationship with several different women, of course. But there's a lot of parallels you can, comparisons you can make with that. I thought that was very. The Deep story, I really thought from the beginning was going to be the weakest point of the story throughout the entire season so far. I'm happy to say that he is not. He's actually one of the best parts of the show, because the insecurity this character has and the manipulation that the church has over him to make him believe in something. He's like, yeah, absolutely. And then you can see they slowly kind of formulating into this
even worse than being indoctrinated almost.
Right.
It's kind of sad and funny to see, because you kind of see the goofiness in it. And he's still kind of like that. It reminds me, and I said earlier, it reminds me if Ryan Reynolds and what's his face? Some other actor kind of melted together and did the fusion. You get this guy, just the Deep himself. It's such a weird, he has this weird kind of way he speaks, this kind of goofy and naive, and he's just not all there. Poor Deep.
No, he's not. And that's a part of that's one thing about the show, that this season so far, and especially each episode, I should say that the insecurities that these guys have had their entire lives is starting to come out, and now they have to confront them. But then you also see the people that are trying to help with those insecurities to manipulate them, to actually help them, and some with certain people, or they are controlling them. There's different variations of how they're dealing with that.
Perfect segue, because Stormfront kind of tries to get some information out of all people. Starlight's mom, who somehow managed to get on set
Oh
and
yeah.
confront Starlight about what happened with the Compound V, and then her and Stormfront's kind of little interaction there, where well, whoever leaked that information must have been really mad, don't you think? And then later on, their interaction later on in the trailer, where they're kind of both calling each other out. Where I know you leaked the Compound V, well,
Yeah.
I know you're racist, and I know you're Liberty, and and it just tension starts building up, and what makes it worse? Homelander walks in, um, which kind of we'll go back from that because it leads up to the ending of the show. But as all this is going on, we're going to go back to just the whole interaction at Butcher's aunt's house was just fantastic. I think that was really the highlight of this episode for me, because you get some backstory on Butcher.
Yeah.
You get some kind of story, some personal story with Butcher. His aunt is awesome. Her being a drug
dealer.
So was kind of funny.
That I did not expect.
That was so great. But you also get some more Huey kind of nods, like how he kind of brings that humanity. Like you said earlier, the previous episode, he's kind of like the glue that brings the group together. And he kind of does in this episode, especially with Mother's Milk and Butcher. And then you get some kind of backstory for Butcher and his family, a little bit more information behind that, to kind of explore a little bit about Huey's and Butcher's interaction and their relationship. And I think kind of helps build up for the end of the episode as well, which is like one of the funny parts. Like Noir, as we saw in the last episode, manages to track down where Butcher is.
Yeah.
And the entire time of this episode, he's hiding on a house. Like
on the rooftop of a house.
A roof of a house. Like
in broad daylight.
And like nobody can see his ass up there, like for real.
Meanwhile, the boys can like spot him just by peeking through the blinders, the blinds there, and you're like, they can spot him, but the guys outside the fire, because there's a whole thing that's going on, because basically Butcher is pretty much telling the guys, I'm done, I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back. He gets in the car, and that's when he notices that Black Noir is on the rooftop, and he realizes, I can't leave because he's going to kill them. He's trying to kill me. And so he goes back inside and tells everybody what's going on. And they're trying to find a way, how can we escape without bringing chaos into this neighborhood? So that's when they set up the alarm to have the smoke go out, and the fire department comes through.
The leaking gas, yeah. They kind of call it leaking gas.
Yeah, you're right. And then they bring the fire department and the police officers through, and that's a nice little
Home Alone
diversion. Well, it's a nice little diversion for them to use that as a way to escape. And you're right. The entire time, the police department, the fire department, they're all there. Not a single person outside in broad daylight can see a guy covered in black from head to toe, literally. Meanwhile, the guys are inside. They could just spot him, the moment they take a peek outside the window. So
I think it's hilarious. It's tongue in cheek, but it works. Yeah. But it's funny as hell.
Because I think this is one of those things that I think the show does a really good job on, and poking fun at some of the things that superhero films do that would be so obviously dumb to be doing in real life, but they do it in the film, and we just kind of accept it on face value. And here they pull it off, and you're wondering, no one noticed this guy at all. And I think that's the humor behind that. I think that's
it works. It works very well.
Way of pulling it off. So we're talking about that here, and we also get a little more insight, as you mentioned before, of obviously of Bill the Butcher here. But one other thing too about this particular episode is that you're starting to see that the things that a lot of these characters were intending on doing, something changes along the way, whether by force or some sort of chain of events that led up to that last minute turnaround here, where they are having to do something that they didn't plan to do, where they're either going to plan on walking away or they're planning on doing something. This is the episode where you're seeing all those changes being made here, and in some way or shape or form, everyone in this episode is going through that. We talked about the Deep for a little bit here. A-Train, where he's shooting a scene in the movie where he's going to talk about his ex, and they wrote that in the script. He's against it. He wants to write his own lines here to say, no, I want to say this instead. And they're saying, well, either you do this or you walk away with none of your severance package here, and you can forget your pension, whatever it was. And he obviously knows that he needs some money, so he's figured out I gotta maintain face. He says his line, which he's supposed to be repeating to Homelander. It turns out it was just a stunt, a stand-in for Homelander, which I thought was fucking hilarious. And then just some of the, there's a lot going on for these characters where they're forced into a situation where they have the intention of doing the polar opposite, but they can't do it for one reason or another. Whether it's, like I said, whether it's by force or through some other circumstances here. That this is it's a very prominent theme in this episode here, and we see that for example, with Homelander, where his intentions, I'm gonna talk to the public and tell them that this is not the way, it's not what it seems, and then obviously they didn't buy his bullshit. Yeah.
And you see his breakdown because of it, right? Like you see, like he has that fantasy or that daydream where he just goes down the crowd.
Did you believe that right off the bat? That
for like a split second, I did. Yeah. But then like once it panned back, I was like, oh shit, okay. Yeah, but then later on, you literally see the man break down because everything he worked for was just kind of dashed right there in a minute, within minutes of him, seconds really.
And the company were telling him, don't go out there and say anything. Let us do the proper necessities to set that up for you to say something. He's like, no, I got it. He just refused to listen.
He didn't have it. He realized, and then he finally goes to Stormfront, which kind of lets him know, like, you either get with the times, you're going to get left behind. God knows I had to do it, which I know she said that last episode, but you kind of see that build up to this episode where finally they kind of, I guess, somehow understand each other at this point. Because he kind of sees like where they kind of see on the same page almost. But I think it's just more manipulation on Stormfront's part.
I think so too, and that's the one thing about this particular episode too, is that where you, like I said before, you're seeing Homelander trying to do something to, to try to regain, try to save face, pretty much, and then someone comes along the way and says, she's basically trying to influence him.
And challenges him. I think it's like first time someone actually physically challenged him and stand toe to toe.
But it's a woman.
Just throws him off.
Which is something that he's not used to be dealing with here, because in previous season, it's a woman who's pretty much manipulating, kind of controlling him, but knows how to, not to cross the line here. This woman is like, fuck that, and challenges him. And despite his aggression, she notices, oh, this is how far I can push him. Now I know what to do to wrap him around here.
Yeah, and she does it. Especially at the end of the episode, you clearly get, the kink look into superhero fetishism somewhat there. Hashtag laser tits. And, it just, it works in a weird kind of messed up kind of way.
Oh, my God,
she clearly has him quite literally in her grasp.
Yeah. Hashtag laser tits. I think that's funny. I hope we put that on the. I hope we have that on the video.
Hashtag laser tits.
Hashtag laser tits. We'll see if that works out. But anyways, I agree with you on that. And
what about y'all? What do y'all think? Do you think Homelander is only getting started? Do you think that this whole situation with Stormfront's going to blow up in his face? Do you think Stormfront's being double agent? You think she's working for Vought?
And she is working for her own needs, no doubt.
But I think it could be some manipulation on her end. She's maybe pretending to work for Vought, but doing her own thing. Like, I don't know. What do you think of the whole? Hold on, before we go any further, because I do want to close this out. Giancarlo Esposito has such a small role in this episode, but man, does he take it? He steals the scene. Yeah, literally. His banter between Butcher was fantastic. Before we close that out, watch the episode. That's all I'm saying. Watch the episode. Watch it not just for the boys, but just for that one scene, because it is fantastic.
Giancarlo, man, that dude. I really hope he's heavily featured more into the season here, because, God, when he's in this scenes there, and although he's in it for like 2 minutes at a time for the most part, he is the fucking man.
He is
in the scenes.
He is. And I can't wait. I want to see more interaction. I think that's the only negative I have about this episode is not enough Giancarlo Esposito. We needed more of him in this episode, and we need more interactions with him and the rest of the cast. That's my only bad takeaway from this episode. Everything else is great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's all I agree. Yeah, so let's leave it at that, though.
Tell us what you guys think, honestly, because that was the rant I was going to get into. Because we love doing these episodes, we love doing these breakdowns, reviews. I really consider this reviews as kind of just us talking about the episode and our favorite things. If you want to join in, let us know in the comments below what you guys think. Did you love the episode? Did you hate the episode? What do you think? Who's your favorite soup? And do you think Huey's a dumbass? Because Rob thinks he is. So let us know. Rob, where can they follow us for more, pop culture and more, stuff like this?
You can follow us here through our social media accounts here. You can follow us on Facebook and on Instagram simply at New Release Wednesdays, and on Twitter at the NRW. You can follow myself on my social media account on Instagram, Rob_Medina0585, and on Twitter, RobMedina0585, and on Facebook, simply just Rob the Movie Guy. And my buddy from Another Nutty over there, where can they follow you, sir?
You can follow me on my Twitter and on my Instagram at DavidIsDisaster, where I post random memes about my life and other stuff that's going on. But you can follow me for on my personal Facebook page on David A.S. Taccato, where I talk about everything pop culture, movies, wrestling, whatever I feel like talking about, and sometimes getting into it with Rob. But that's it, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Me and Rob, I've been loving doing this. If you like what we do, please check out what the rest of the NRW crew is doing. We do everything else from comic books, movies, video games, food, music. It's not just us. It's not just our pretty faces you get to see. We can check out what the rest of the crew is doing, because I know con season is not really going on right now, but we're doing our best to bring out as much pop culture news every day as we can, giving little hints of stuff, little drops of stuff, or little stuff that's be coming out in the future. So please stand by and just keep watching.
That's it, guys, and we thank you very much for joining us here today. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the share button, and also hit that like button as well too, and help us get to our numbers at 1,000 subscribers here. But until next time, everybody, you guys stay safe out there, and cheers.
Cheers.
No,